mindset right before Showgirls premiered, before it was shown to critics in terms of the movie that you'd made and the process that you'd gone through? How did you think it was going to go?
I thought it would be going well. I thought there would be some criticism because of Puritanism, of course, in the United States. There's always all the nudity that might be a problem. But I never thought that the movie would be bashed in such a way as it was. No. It was absolutely a disaster. So if I would have thought that would have been the case, I would certainly not have made the movie, because I thought we made something really interesting. But I think that was lost.
And something that, I mean, again, I'm also curious, you're a filmmaker who, to that point in your career, you had in some ways had a great deal of success, films that were incredibly commercially successful in Holland and the States, and you'd also had films that had their share of controversy, whether it was Spetters in the Netherlands or Basic Instinct in the United States. When you have them, you yourself just said you felt like it was a disaster at the time. How do you deal with that when it's happening? Are you reading reviews? Are you talking to people who are involved in the movie? Are you cutting yourself off? I'm curious, what's that moment like for a filmmaker who's had so much success?
Well, what I normally, I mean, with both, of course, it was not the first time that something went a bit differently than I thought, but I think the only thing you can do, and which I did, is to start a new movie as soon as possible.
And that was Starship Troopers.
That was Starship Troopers, which I think that's the only way to protect yourself or to get to that, you know, because if you stand still, and it was of course for the main actress Elizabeth Berkley, she didn't get to something interesting or big or whatever after Showgirls, so she had to deal with it in a different way than I was already working on another movie, and I could jump into that. And it was a big movie, so you forget about all the problems that you had, that could have been there for me psychologically if I hadn't done another movie. So I protected myself. But it was really not the purpose, you know. I mean, this movie, Starship Troopers, was already there, vaguely, and so I jumped into it as much as I could, so to forget this problem.
Do you think that the response, because earlier in your career when you made Spetters in the Netherlands, it's a film that had in some ways an equally hostile response. I mean, I've always thought those two films, the response is similar, the response in Holland and the response in America to Showgirls. Did you feel the same way when that happened with Spetters, so many 15 years earlier, that you just had to move on and do something else? Were you angrier then, or with what happened with Showgirls?
Well, I mean, there was a difference, because Spetters, although it was of course critics and the whole country, the critical country, the journalists and the television and the radio, whatever, was reacting exactly the same way as with Showgirls. Only the audience stayed, the audience came. So we didn't lose the audience. In Showgirls we got a negative, ultra negative reaction of the critics, and the movie didn't work.
Well,
so that was a really different feeling.
And were you aware, even when you were working on Starship Troopers, that as recently as a few months after Showgirls came out, or within the same year, that the audience was starting to come back? That they were seeing it, whether it was at these late night screenings or when it came out on video, that the audience was coming back a little bit?
Some kind of audience, yes. Yeah. Not the audience that I had hoped that would be there, you know. I mean, it took 10, 15 years before there was a little bit of a different opinion about Showgirls, and then it first, of course, became then a cult film, and which it still is, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you cannot say sitting here that there was a really different direction in the whole country, isn't it? Not at all. It was a selected group of people that were willing to look at the movie in a different way than in 1995.
But I wonder what you think about the fact, and I really do wonder what you think about the fact that the people looking at it in a different way, it's either that kind of cult midnight movie audience who are having an incredible amount of fun with it, or it's this very academic audience of critics and people who are, I guess we would say, tourists, people familiar with you as a director. Like in 2002, Film Quarterly, which is a really serious film journal, did 16 pages about Showgirls. It's interesting when you think about the fact that it's either, I don't want to say at the low end, but at the cult movie end, the kind of fun end, and then the very serious academic end. Those are the people who kind of reclaimed your movie.
No, I'm very happy that it happened, you know. But I mean, it didn't make what happened. I mean, I had to live with what had happened, which has nearly killed my career. I mean, it was very difficult for, let's say, American studios and people, let's say, that were financing the movies. It was very difficult to forget Showgirls because they lost all confidence in me as a director that could do something realistic. I mean, they didn't they still believed in me as a director of science fiction. I mean, that we really was not handicapped. But after RoboCop and Total Recall, I tried really to get out of the science fiction, at least for some time, by doing Basic Instinct. And Basic Instinct was even a bigger success than the other two that I had made. And so it opened an enormous amount of doors after Basic Instinct, which is talking about 91 or 92, which was I was trying to use to make another movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger called Crusades, which had a very high budget of 120 million or something like that. And that fell apart. There was the company that was supposed to do that went slowly bankrupt, and then we did. Then I had to do Showgirls. Basically, that was something that was already decided before, and I mean, I'm glad I did it. You know, I'm glad I made that. What you want to say, perhaps. That I did that mistake, I made that mistake, if you want to call it that way. And for a long time I cursed myself that I had done it. Now, of course, it is completely different. Now I think I appreciate the fact that that I did it, because it didn't kill me, you know. And it's what Nietzsche, the philosopher, would say, is basically what doesn't kill you that makes you stronger.
Do you think that